Welcome to another video from McFatter Tech Musser. If you like these videos, please click subscribe. 70-741 Lab 8, Implementing Network Connectivity Solutions. In this lab, we're going to be looking at routing and remote access. We'll be configuring routing. We'll be looking at enabling NAT, and then finally we're going to take a look at the route command. Let's begin. We'll be working with our LUN-DC1, our domain controller, of course, that controls our access. Principally, we'll be working with our LUN-SVR1 and our NA-RTR. That is what really acts as our router in our network. We're going to begin in our first exercise and take a look at installing and configuring routing and remote access. This is RRAS. Before you can use RRAS, you first need to add the remote access role. Then you need to initially configure RRAS so that you can specify which options are available with it. To install the remote access role, we'll use Server Manager to install the proper role. Because the remote access computer is used to connect an organization's internal private network with the internet, the server should have two network cards. As a side note, before we begin this lab, remember that within a LAN, within a subnet, we move traffic around by MAC address. Our switches build a CAM table, they associate the port and the connected MAC address, and this creates less traffic on our switch. It's much more efficient. If we want to be able to get from one network to another network, we need to have a router. We need to have some way to be able to transition from one network to another network that we're not part of. This is what routing does. So let's jump over to SVR1. We're going to go ahead and we're going to get logged in with our system administrator account. Remember that if you log in with the administrator account on a member server, it's going to think you want to log into the local administrator account. So you would have to prefix it with your domain name, a slash, and then the name administrator. That's why we use the system administrator account, which we created as a copy of our domain administrator, and it simplifies login. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to Manage, Add Roles and Features, and like all other times we're going to click Next, Next, and Next. We're only managing one server here. If we had multiple servers that we were managing, if this was a jump box, we would have to specify the specific server that we wanted to install that role or feature onto. Remember, you don't have to log into a server to be able to manage it. This is the great thing about Server Manager. You can install this on a jump box. It could be a Windows 10 machine that you have designated as restricted access, and then you install Server Manager to it and you manage your servers from there. You don't ever have to log into the servers. In this case, we only are managing our single server. We're going to click Next, and on our first screen we're going to go right here to Remote Access and select that. We're going to click Next, we're going to click Next, we're going to click Next, and now on our Select Role Services, because this role has multiple services that we can utilize, we're going to select Direct Access and VPN. We're going to click Add Features, and this will give us the remote server administration tools for that. We're also going to select Routing. We're going to click Next. We're going to click Next. On the Role Services, we're again going to click Next and Install. Now for my students, once our installation has completed, once we see a configuration required, installation succeeded prompt right here, this will be your first screenshot, and you're going to paste that into step number 10. For all others, we'll just be moving on. I'm going to pause this while the installation completes. I'll be back in a moment. Okay, and our installation has completed. As you can see, our configuration is required. However, this is the end of our first exercise. As I said, students, make sure you get that screenshot, get it pasted into step number 10, and we're moving on to our next exercise. Our second exercise is configuring routing, and for this exercise we're going to be jumping over to our NARTR. So we need to go ahead and get logged into that as well, and we're going to log in with that system admin account again. Should take just a moment for it to come up. And this is the first that we've managed this server. So again, we're going to go to Manage, Add Roles and Features. We're going to do Next, 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 Remote Access. We're going to click Next, Next, Next. Now on this one, I'm only going to select Routing. And then I'll add the features for the Remote Server Administration tools. And we click Next, and you'll see that when you select Routing, it automatically selects the Direct Access and VPN. We'll click Next, 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 and Install. And here again, I'm going to go ahead and pause this while the installation proceeds, and I'll be back to you in just a second. And through the magic of video, our installation has finished. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to click Close. Now this will be the first time that we've run the routing and remote access. So we're going to go to Tools, and we're going to go down to Routing and Remote Access. On our first screen, when we select the NARTR, you can see nothing has been configured yet. As it says, to set up routing remote access, on the Actions menu, click Configure and Enable Routing and Remote Access, or you can right-click on your server name. And remember, you don't have to manage just a single server. You could select Routing Remote Access and add additional servers and manage them all from one spot. That's the great thing about you doing this from a jump box. You can install the server administration tools on that jump box and manage your routers from another machine. For my students, take a screenshot. This will be your step number 4 screenshot. For all viewers, we'll be moving on. We're going to right click. We're going to go configure and enable routing and remote access. And like most everything else, we get a setup wizard. We click next, and we're going to select a custom configuration. Now, if you just simply wanted to make a NAT box, you could just simply select NAT. There are a couple of pre-configured roles. We're going to do a custom configuration because we want to be able to route between networks. We're going to do next. We're going to select LAN routing. This is the only thing that we're going to configure here. We're going to do next. We're going to do finish. It's going to take a moment. Now this is the first time this is run, so we may get exactly there. We got the notice, hey, the service needs to be started. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do that. Should take just a few more moments. And there we are. We can see we've got, it's kind of hard to see, but we've got a green arrow with a circle on our router. We're going to go ahead and we're going to expand IPv4, and we're going to right click on general. Or actually, you know what, first let's left click on it. Here we can see all the configured interfaces that are available in the IPv section. For our next step, we're going to right click on general, and we're going to say we want to install a new routing protocol. And that routing protocol that we're going to add is RIP version 2 for Internet Protocol. We're going to answer 2 questions first though. On your screen, question number 1, which routing protocols are available? Well, go ahead and list them. DHCP Relay Agent, IGMP Router and Proxy, NAT, RIP version 2 for Internet Protocol. These are the routing protocols that we can install in our RRAS system. Question number 2, why isn't Border Gateway Protocol BGP listed? Do you know? Why isn't it listed? We don't configure BGP through our GUI. It's configured using Windows PowerShell. So we do it from PowerShell. So your answer for why isn't BGP listed is BGP is not configured with RRAS. Instead, it's configured with Windows PowerShell. Okay, that's question number 2. We're going to go ahead and we're going to click OK. We can now see we've added the RIP protocol. We're going to right click on RIP and we're going to say New Interface. We're going to select the London network and click OK. Now, let's answer our third question. By default, what operation mode is RIP configured to use? Right there, operation mode, periodic update mode. Question number 3. We're going to go ahead and we're going to click OK. And we've added our London network for our RIP. We're going to right click once more and we're going to add another interface, and this time we're going to add the NA WAN and click OK. We're also going to, on the property screen, we're going to go ahead and we're going to click OK. And now I'd like my students to go ahead and take a screenshot and put that in step number 17. Our second exercise is done. We've configured a router to do LAN routing. Our London network can now communicate with our NA WAN. Keep in mind that to do so, computers in the London network would need to be configured with this gateway address. In the NA WAN, all devices there would need to see this as their gateway address. And remember, doesn't matter how many network interfaces you have, you can only configure one gateway address. This router has none because it doesn't need to go anywhere. It's doing a job for us. Let's move on to our third exercise. This is going to be enabling NAT. In this exercise, we'll configure network address translation, that's NAT, on our Windows Server 2016. Although CIDR, helps us use the IPv4 addresses more efficiently, additional steps had to prevent the exhaustion of IPv4 addresses. We talked about this in our A+ section. Whereas if every one of our devices had to have a public IP address, that 4.294 billion IPv4 addresses would have been exhausted years ago. By the use of private IP addressing, we can alleviate that. Network address translation is used with masquerading to hide an entire address space, our private address space, behind a single IP address. In other words, it allows multiple computers on a network to connect to the internet through a single IP address. We're going to go ahead and on our NARTR, we're going to right click on the server name and we're going to select Disable Routing and Remote Access. It says, hey, do you really want to do this? Yes, we do. We're going to click yes. It's going to take a moment and it's going to remove our configuration. We'll be back to that original configuration required screen that we saw a few moments ago. Service is going to stop. Our screen should refresh here in a moment, and there it is. We're going to right click on our server name and we're going to select configure. In our setup wizard, we're going to click next, and this time we're going to select that network address translation. We'll click next. We're going to select the London network, and with the London network selected, we're going to designate this as being the public interface to connect to the internet. We're going to click next, and we're going to say, what is the interface for the network that will have access to the internet? In other words, we're representing this NA router as being on the NA WAN. We're going to click next. We've selected NA WAN, by the way, as you can see. On the name and address translation services, we're going to go ahead and we're going to enable basic name and address services. We'll click next. On the address assignment, we're going to leave that just the way it is. It just gives us some information. We click next, and we're going to click finish. Now it's going to take a moment for our routing remote access service to start up. And when it starts up, we should get that same circle with the green arrow within it. And there we are. If we expand IPv4, we can see that NAT has been set up. I'd like my students to go ahead, take a screenshot, and place this into step number 11. Now, typically, we would not have configured our London network as our internet. You would have selected your external circuit, your data circuit connected to the internet. This is simply for example. We're going to go ahead and we're going to close that remote access console. Not sure why we got this, so we'll say report this error to Microsoft, and then we'll shut down the MMC. Let's go ahead and move on to our lab challenge. Our lab challenge is using the route command. Now, to complete this challenge, I want my students to document how to use the route command. For those viewing the video for their own learning, this is how we create routes manually. We can create static routes through our routing and remote access console, but you can also do it from your command line. Understand that by default our routes are created automatically within Windows, but you can create static routes using the route.exe command. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to click start. We're going to type in COMM, and I'm going to right click on command prompt and say run as administrator. We'll click yes. The first thing we want to know is, well, we've got the route command. We can do a question mark and we can see what our options are in with that. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to left click and drag this to the top so it goes full length. We'll scroll up and we can see here we can do this with the F to clear the routing table. We can use -P to make a route persistent. So understand that if you add a static route and do not use the -P command, once the system reboots, that route will be removed. It's not persistent. If you want a route to be permanent, you need to type it in and use the -P command. We can type in a route using route add is our command. You'll notice right here, see here, there's commands that you can utilize. Print, add, delete, or change. If you want to add a new route, we use route space add. If we want to delete a route, route space delete. If we want to display all of our routes that are currently on our system, it's route space print, and that works for any system. In fact, if I come over here, if I go to PowerShell on my base Windows 10 machine, I can run the same thing from PowerShell, route print. And there are all the routes currently configured on my system. Let's do the same thing on our Windows server. I'm going to type in route print. This is our answer to our first question, which is which command displays the routing table in Windows? Route space print, and there it is. Now, the second question deals with which command creates a route to the 172.25.1.x, that's a Class C network, that goes out the 192.168.1.20 router. So we want to create a route that the destination is the 172.25.1.x network with a subnet mask of 255.255.255.0, that's a Class C, and it's going to utilize the 192.168.1.20 as its gateway. Well, let's type in that route question mark again. See, see right here? They give you some examples. Route add, the destination, the subnet mask, and the gateway address. Let's do that same thing. Route, the question says to the 172.25.1.x network. Do we have to type in an IP address? No, we don't. We can type in the network ID. If this is on a Class C network, what is the network ID for the 172.25.1 network? Correct. That's your network ID if the subnet mask, oops, I've got to type in mask. If that's your subnet mask, 172.25.1.0 is the network ID. Now the other thing we have to do is we have to tell it what the gateway address is. And in our case, they say uses the 192.168.1.20 interface. We press enter. Now we already talked about this. If we want a route to be persistent after reboot, what is the command that you need to give? You need to prefix the command of add with a -p right here. So to add a permanent persistent route, it would be route space -p space add your network destination, subnet mask, or with the term mask and then that subnet mask, and then the gateway address. Now if we want to delete a route, what would we type in? Well, we know that from looking at our commands here that delete deletes a route. So let's go down here. If we want to delete a route, well, obviously we need to use the route and we need to use the delete command. Well, we can't delete our gateway address. What is that route identified by? It's identified by the network. That's your destination. So this would delete a route being defined. Now we can press enter, nothing's going to happen exactly. See, the route deletion failed, it doesn't exist. Those are some of the steps for creating static and or temporary routes depending on how you do that route command with or without the -p. I'd like to thank everyone for reviewing this Lab 8 and 70-741. Like always, if you enjoy these labs, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And as I always say, I'll see you in the next lab or lesson. Take care.